Today's video is sponsored by Picker's Grip. Stop dropped picks and pick rotation while playing with Picker's Grip. Made with all natural ingredients in Virginia. Check out their website to order. When you support my sponsor, this also supports my channel, and it's very much appreciated. You know what really pisses me off about this country? The United States currently houses more than 560 billionaires, yet not a single one of these losers has decided to become Batman. In talking with my friend Billy Cokes from Picker's Grip this past week, whose product you just saw a promo for, he suggested that I do a video on what amp should I buy. So I'm going to do a video on what amp should you buy. And in doing so, I thought about what process is it that when I'm making a serious purchase for a specific need, what are the steps that I follow? In today's world of amplifiers, the number of options and features and prices and all of the different things that go into an amplifier, there is at least one amp to fill every single guitar player's need out there. And as such, particularly if you are a beginner, maybe even an intermediate player, it can get to be very overwhelming very, very quickly. Again, especially with as far as technology has advanced in our industry as of today. There was a lot of choices back when I was a kid, and the number of choices that we had back then are seems like nothing compared to what is out there nowadays. So when I go to make an amplifier purchase, there are a number of things that a number of factors that I have to determine in advance before I make a purchase. What are those factors, Robert? Great question. Number one, I need to decide what kind of music am I going to be playing with this amplifier. What's my budget? What kind of specific features am I looking for that I'm going to need? What other add-ons am I going to need? Such as additional accessories in order to get said amplifier to do what I need it to do, which is also important in the budget question. Where will it be used? How many people are going to need to hear it? In other words, what kind of an audience, how big is the audience in front of me, and how will they be hearing it? Am I going to be using any kind of external effects with this amplifier? And last but not least, for whatever particular instance this might be, is solid state or tube going to be a better solution? So that's 8 different things that I got to take into account when I am buying an amplifier. And by the way, I'm intentionally leaving out how does it sound, do I like the way it sounds, because I think that one is fairly obvious. And also is probably going to be determined once most of those other factors are met, in most cases. So for example, starting at the top of that list, what type of music are we going to be playing with it? Well, if you take me for example, chances are it's probably going to be used for hard rock and heavy metal. What is my budget going to be? For this example, we'll call it $500. That's a pretty common budget to spend on a decent, well-rounded amplifier these days. And to be honest, with $500, I think a lot of people out there would be very surprised what they can buy for $500, or less in a lot of cases. Well, what features am I looking for? It's got to have. I would want it to be, have plenty of wattage or plenty of power, or at least be loud. Be plenty loud enough that I'm going to be heard. I'm playing metal with it, so it's got to have a good distortion, and it's got to have a good sounding distortion, as well as a good clean tone that I can add some other effects to. Speaking of effects, I'm going to want an effects loop. I would also want to determine whether I want to go the head and cab route, a head and 212, a head and 412, or would a 112 or a 212 combo get the job done. For myself, I have always preferred the head and cabinet route. Again, just my personal preference. A lot of combos, especially open back combos, they just don't have that tightness that I'm usually looking for. So I prefer a head and cab of some kind. let's see, what else am I going to need to buy with it? A cable is the most obvious thing, and as far as what cable to buy, again, that's another thing that you should factor into your budget if you do in fact need one. If you're just practicing at home in a bedroom, I don't know that you need to factor in an extra $70 for a Mogami instrument cable. You could probably get away with factoring in an extra $15 for a 10-foot live wire cable. And I like the live wire cables because, generally speaking, they're inexpensive. Generally speaking, they're reliable. And in the instance that I'm wrong, they do carry a full lifetime warranty, and you can exchange them out for virtually any reason, provided you don't run over them with a lawnmower or something. They're not going to swap that out. So you need a cable, maybe an amp stand. If you're going the combo route, you might want to consider an amp stand. A good solid amp stand can be had somewhere between $30 and $50. Where will it be used? Let's assume that this is going to be an all-purpose amplifier. So I'm going to want to practice at home with it. I'm going to want to take it to band practice, and I intend on playing some small gigs with it. In this instance, I'm going to assume that small gigs will involve a PA system of some kind, and the amplifier will be mic'd up in a live situation. And that, how many people are going to need to hear it? Again, in that instance, I'm going to assume upwards of 100. Small clubs, depending on, depending on the club, depending on the city, depending on the, who knows. 100 people is a fair amount of people to want to go out and play in front of. And the last two things, are external effects going to be used with it? I'm a metal guy, of course. What metal player doesn't like to use delay and reverb and, a gazillion other different things? And last but not least, tube or solid state. This one is particularly important to consider and make a determination on for a number of different reasons, because both of them have many advantages and many disadvantages. In the instance of solid state, their advantages are they are generally more inexpensive, they're more durable, and they're lightweight, and maintenance costs are generally very low, if anything at all, because you don't have to worry about changing out the tubes every so often. But the downsides to solid state amplifiers are that they generally anyway don't have as much headroom. So if it's even a 100 or 120 watt amplifier, while it will perform pretty well at a low volume level, even at a bedroom level, I think I've done it. When you go to crank them up and you really push them, 100 watts, 100 solid state watts just doesn't seem to get the job done. It gets real muddy real quick. There's a reason why when Dimebag Darrell was playing the Randall Warheads, those amplifiers were 350 watts a piece, and he used many of them at the same time when he was playing live on stage. He had to have that many watts because that's how many watts had to go into it in order for him to get the clean headroom that he needed. So those are some advantages and disadvantages of solid state amplifiers. Tube amplifiers, on the other hand, also have plenty of advantages. Number one, they are going to provide you with a lot less wattage. Is going to go a lot farther and offer a lot more headroom and get a lot louder without getting muddy and sounding like the speaker's going to blow on you. And most importantly, they tend to sound so much better and so much more natural. Disadvantages, however, those, generally speaking, tube amps are not lightweight and not the easiest things in the world to lug around. There are a lot of maintenance costs involved. If you have to retube a 100 watt tube head, that can cost you $150 to $200 easy. Probably more if you decide to go with the higher end tubes like Mollard's or something like that. So there are more maintenance costs involved. And last but not least, they are typically going to be a little bit more expensive. For the purposes of this example, I am going to choose a tube amplifier. So, given that list of parameters that I have drawn up for myself, there are all kinds of options out there. And I'm aware that I have made fun of some of these brands that I'm getting ready to mention here in the past, but not these particular models. Bugera has all kinds of options out there in that price range, and I do, for the record, think that their new Infinium series of amplifiers are a ginormous improvement over the first generation of amps that they put out. But I believe it's called the T50 Infinium. It's a great amplifier. The the Joyo Mjolnir, I believe, is what that model called. I think runs right around the $500 range. The PV Valve King I know is also in that neighborhood, as well as many others. And furthermore, if you search the used market, you're going to be surprised at what you can buy for even less. The Crate Blue Voodoos, and Crate gets a bad rep just because of its name at this point, because before Line 6 came out in the 90s and was the practice amp of the late 90s and the 2000s all the way up to now, before any of that stuff was available, guys my age, when we were starting to play back in the 80s, it was all Crates. So I admit to having a soft spot for Crate amplifiers. But that being said, my very first tube amp was in fact a Crate Blue Voodoo BV 120 head and 412 cabinet, and it was a monstrous killer sounding amplifier. Basically, it was a poor man's Marshall JCM 900, and I wish like crazy that I had never sold it, because I loved that amp and it sounded great. And if I hope I get the chance to buy it back one day. But you can find a Blue Voodoo, you can find a used Blue Voodoo head for probably somewhere in the $300 to $350 range, and you might even still have enough left over to buy a cabinet with it. And if you really play your cards right, not only can you buy a cabinet, but you can probably also get the cable that you might need. The B52 AT100 is another excellent option that you can find on the used market. It's an import amplifier. B52 has been very quiet on the amp market here lately. I don't know that they're producing much at all anymore, but the tube amps are out there, and you can probably find one of the used AT100 heads for about $200 to $300. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically a poor man's Mesa Boogie dual rectifier. It has a lot of the same features. It's even got the same tube configuration, the rectifier tube, and it's got a lot of similarities, and it sounds very similar. I played one for several years, and I really enjoyed it. They even came out with a later version called the ATX 100, which sounds different, but it has a much more modern sound to it, and that's another excellent amp that you can buy for probably about $300. Again, on the used market. So don't sell yourself short. So the point I'm trying to make is there are all kinds of options in there that for an amplifier like that has those features that I'm looking for, that will do most of the things I needed to do, if not all of the things that I needed to do, and are well within my price range. And that's not just true for the metal amps. For the blues guys that like the smaller 15, 20, 30 watt combos, you'd be surprised at what Fender tube combos are out there for, especially in that $500 price range. The Fender Blues Junior, for example, is 15 watts and a very loud 15 watts. It has that great classic Fender clean sound, and you can find them used for $300-400 all day long. The PV Classic Series amplifiers are also very affordable, actually both on the used and on the new market. And in my opinion, they sound better than the Fender Hot Rods, which seemingly is the amp that they were designed to compete directly against. Let's say that we go in a completely different direction and we're trying to keep our budget around $200, and this time we're just looking for a simple bedroom practice amplifier. Doesn't need to get very loud. I'm the only one that needs to hear it. I'm not going to be any more than about 10 feet away from it, and you need it to be about as versatile as you can be. In this instance, you might want to consider a solid state amplifier. And again, the reason why is because one thing that I found that solid state amps do very well is practice at low volumes. And now we go back to the modeling amplifier category, and these are amplifiers that do just about anything that you can possibly imagine tone wise. They can play, nowadays they can play literally any genre that you can imagine. If you learn how to tweak all the knobs and the controls and all that kind of stuff, I admit I'm not very good at it with those amps, but the younger generation are. They can get just about any kind of sound out of them that anything their heart desires. And $200 will probably get you about 30 or 40 watts, all the amp tones that you can possibly imagine. You might not even need any pedals to put in front of it or behind it or anything. Just a guitar, an amp, and a cable, and you have literally everything that you need. And one last tip, You know, if the amp that you're looking at, after you've made all these determinations and you have decided which amp is going to be the right decision for you. However, the one that you're looking at is still just slightly out of your budget. You know, if you're looking at one of the big box retail stores anyway, hang tight for, you know, for a 10% off coupon to roll around, because those coupons are pretty common. You generally don't have to wait very long. And then when they do, that can oftentimes bring the price down to where it's more manageable inside your budget. And then you get a brand new amplifier. If you enjoyed this video and you want to support this channel, you can check out my new shop on Teespring, where all of my merch is sold. And now that I'm shooting this video, I am probably going to try to design a Batman Billionaire t-shirt of some kind and see if I can do it without violating any copyright laws. But even if I'm not able to do that, there's also all kinds of other cool guitar related t-shirts, and I encourage you to check them out. Treat yourself to a t-shirt. All the proceeds from my merch shop actually go right back into supporting this channel, which is 100% funded by me out of my own pocket. If you don't want to buy a t-shirt though, please consider subscribing. You can hit the subscribe button right down about there, and you can also hit the little alert icon right next to it, which is probably right about there, give or take, and that will ensure that you get the alerts and you don't miss out on new videos being uploaded. Links to anything pertinent that I discussed will be down in the description. You can leave me a comment down there below that. And last but not least, go spend a few bucks and go buy some Picker's Grip and check out their product. It's a fantastic product. I believe in it. That's why it has been a great partnership between myself and Picker's Grip, and I think everybody should give it a try. It's inexpensive. You can afford it. Maybe I should just become Batman. You know what? There are tons of young people out there that want to get involved in music and do not have the means to do so. If you are watching this video, most likely you're a musician, and many experienced musicians have tons of broken and unwanted gear lying around that they're not doing anything with. Please visit my friends at Share the Music on Facebook at the link below and learn how you and your unwanted gear can help change somebody's life.